Hey everyone, it's me again with another video. And I just wanted to do a bit of a Q&A tonight, and it was kind of regarding what your biggest question about fat loss is. And sorry if I look down at myself. I'm trying to look at the camera, but you get caught up. So I wanted to go over what was probably the most common question. I'm going to get my hair cut soon. It's getting a little bit bad now. It's a common question people ask me. Well, easy enough. The most common question people ask me when it regards fat loss is, how do I lose fat? And so, hey, Victoria, how you doing? And that's probably the most common question, how do I lose fat? So generally you want to look at things that are going to be simple at first, right? So you can't, you can't complicate things. So, hello, Brendan, how you doing? What's going on? You can't complicate things. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. You can't complicate things, so you got to look at fat loss in what you can do and then kind of grow upon that. So, if I was going to tell somebody at first, in regards to helping them lose fat, I would say obviously number one, try to do strength training 3 to 5 days a week, preferably 3 starting off with mostly total body training. But one thing I would do is I tell people to basically easy enough, track your calories first. If you can't measure what you're doing, it's going to be hard for you to be successful. So there's a bunch of crazy, not necessarily crazy, but there's a bunch of complicated. I'll get to that question in a second. But one thing I would recommend is instead of getting crazy with your calculations, there's like Catch McCardle and all that, is to take your body weight and multiply that by 10. That would be your first. We want to do this with a calorie range, right? So take your body weight. So let's say I'm 226, I'm going to multiply that by 10. So 2,600. From there, I'm going to take my body weight again and then multiply that by 12. So when you get those two numbers, you want to, let's say, keep it simple. Go find a video on YouTube on how to use MyFitnessPal, right? If you're having trouble with it. Open up my MyFitnessPal account and then focus on that number one, is just tracking that calorie range, right? So again, multiply your body weight by 10 and then multiply your body weight by 12. Once you have that range, that's a good start. Number two, from there, once you start tracking your calories, just do that first, right? Number two, make sure you're trying to eat more whole foods. So you can treat yourself. Don't get too crazy with it. You don't need to be too strict. But you can treat yourself, say a couple times a week, or if you slip up, it's okay. You can get back on the wagon and keep going from there. Like, don't look at a screw up like, oh, hey, I fucked up. I'm going to screw up my whole day, and that's it. If you eat something bad, and that's kind of off kilter with what you normally do, then just get back on track, and you'll be fine again, right? From there. Yeah, exactly. There you go. 10 pounds in 2 weeks. There we go. We can do that. We can do that for sure. From there, I would track protein intake, right? So you have your calorie range, your strength training. Don't go too crazy with your strength training. You don't need to do high intensity training all the time. It's not necessary. You gotta look at your energy levels during the week, and if you feel comfortable doing 3 training sessions or working out 3 times a week, that's perfect. If some people can handle more, that's fine as well. Predominantly though, for most people, I would start them off with total body training, and this all kind of relates back to what's the best way to lose fat. This is just an optimal way that's very efficient and allows you to live your lifestyle as well. So track your protein. That's number 2. So an easy way to do that is, again, body weight times 0.8, which will give you one number. And then again, take your body weight and multiply that by 1. So that's a good way. Protein's really good because it's going to focus on helping with lean muscle retention, and your body has to burn more calories as well to process the protein. So it's got a kind of like a double banged approach to it. Once you do this, and you have your calorie range, which is good, because if you were to get too strict with, like, say I had to eat 1,500 calories a day, if I had to constantly just focus on eating 1,500 calories a day, that's going to screw me up because I got to keep focusing on that one number. But if you're within a range, like say 1,500 to 1,800, then that's going to be easier for you to stick to because you're going to have your days where you have your ups and your downs, right? So from there, like I said, you have your calorie intake, and now you have your protein intake. Those are the two main things, and plus your strength training. Because if your nutrition isn't in order, you're going to have a really fucking hard time to lose fat. So once you have those two in order, you can focus on carbohydrates and fats, which are both great, by the way, which are both necessity. I would highly recommend, I wouldn't avoid carbohydrates because they're going to help fuel your workouts. And it's depending on the individual. You might get some people that perform very well with like a keto type keto style nutrition. Very rarely, though, I find most people, if they're going to strength train or do any form of training, especially more often during the week or even running, they're going to need carbohydrates to fuel their workouts, right? This is the other aspect, though. This is where I think people get if you follow the first two, your calorie range and your protein range, you're going to be well off because your fats and your carbohydrates are going to change on any given day, right? So that can always be up one day, it can always be down one day. That's okay. As long as you're staying within that calorie range and you're eating enough quality protein as well, right? And, protein come in any, it's Greek yogurt, eggs are very good. Egg whites, protein powder, although I don't use that very much anymore. I haven't used it in a while. Lean ground beef, chicken breast. I usually eat a lot of, I have these wraps that I purchased recently, and they're called, I think they're Protein Up wraps, and those are extremely good. They certainly help a lot, that's for sure. But I would focus on those two things first and foremost, and then making sure you're consistent with your training, right? If you're consistent, that's where it's going to all come into play, right? You're going to fall off the wagon. You're going to enjoy some treats from time to time, but as long as you're kind of tracking, and then you don't need to track your progress, like your calories and your protein intake forever. This just until you get used to I call it your groove, right? So whatever groove you get in, you start to get used to what type of food you normally eat, then you can kind of eyeball it from there, right? Later on, hopefully I remember, I can post the link to serving sizes, which are really, I think that's really good for a lot of people. It's a necessity for most people to keep an eye on what their serving sizes are. So please do that. Hopefully, like, these tips are helping you. And if you want to lose fat, I wouldn't say that endless hours of cardiovascular work are going to be very good in essence. It's good if that's what you're training for. But most of the time I usually get, like, say in particular, my clients will do conditioning work, right? So you could have your 3 strength training days during the week. And then you could follow through with, like, say, 2 days of the week. You could do conditioning style workouts, right? Or in CrossFit they call them Metcons, metabolic resistance training. These only need to be short, probably 10, 15, 20 minutes at most. And then from there, I would recommend maybe even once a week you could do like a long walk or something like that, just to get your aerobic cardiovascular work, right? So a walk is fine, but you don't need to go crazy. I mean, you see people at the gym doing like hours and hours of cardiovascular work, right? And that's a big common myth that we're going to see with fat loss. Hopefully these tips help. I do ramble on a little bit, but we are basically talking about what's, your fat loss questions. So if I know Victoria, I don't know if you're still on the video here. What was your question again? I just wanted to take a quick second to answer that. I think it was about motivation. So motivation is good at first. That's what's going to help you within the first couple of weeks. But after that period, you're going to start to lose motivation. That's just bound to happen, right? Exactly, yeah, motivation. There you go. Sometimes you need to look at it from a different perspective. So you need to start instilling habits, right? Your habits that are going to get you through the week. And your habits could be like your morning routine, but you need to make sure that you go from the motivation factor into these daily habits that are going to help you to keep progressing after the motivation starts to deteriorate a little bit, right? I can actually, one thing I can do after is I could post a link to an article or even a book on habits. Lean Habits is actually a really good book. I recommend that to a lot of people. I think it's Lean Habits for Life. I'm not 100% sure, but I will certainly post that below, and I'll post an article. Now, going on besides that, are there any other questions with regards to fat loss? Is there anything that is very important that you constantly ask yourself and you need to know? Nobody? Tough crowd. Usually, in terms of kind of going back to the habits factor, I've tried to focus on, I usually have a morning routine when I get up in the morning, and that could be anything from instilling habits like having a journal. I use an app called Fabulous, which is a really good app for instilling habits. So I usually journal in the morning. I do some focused work. I put my exercise in the morning as well. Even things like, making sure I get my breakfast in. Drinking tea, that's a big thing instead of a lot of coffee. I used to drink a lot of coffee before, like obscene amounts of coffee. And it's just not necessary. In terms of overeating, actually this could be a couple things. Are you overeating in the evening? Or do you also, not essentially overeat in the evening, but do you also drink a lot of caffeine, maybe a lot of coffee during the day? No, I know, you can still drink your coffee, but the biggest thing in terms of this is, in most situations, like if you were to go anywhere else in the world besides like, North America, where everybody likes to drink their triples and extra large, which is completely fucking unnecessary, let's be honest. Most people usually split up, they drink about 4 to 6 ounces of coffee. And that's all you really need, because when most people in a day could drink at most 200 milligrams. There should be drinking 200 milligrams. But if you're drinking a extra large Starbucks, or what do they call it, Venti or Grande, usually you're probably getting somewhere between it could be 400 or 500 milligrams of caffeine, which is highly unnecessary, right? So if you just even cut back a little bit on your caffeine during the day and let your body kind of relax a little bit, like a lot of this overeating can come from stress, right? It can lead to emotional overeating. So if you start focusing on ways to de-stress yourself, like a reduction in caffeine, maybe if you wanted to start taking up some meditation practice in the morning, even 5 minutes, these things are going to help your body kind of relax, and then you'll start to adapt to those issues with hunger. And that might not always work, but in some situations it can. But also going back to tracking your calories. If you're tracking your calories and you start to notice that you're not overeating, essentially, then you're in a better place, right? But if you find that you're overeating, you might be undereating during the day, and then your body's ravenous in the evening. So these are a couple things you have to look for, right? Maybe even too, you might even start focusing on drinking some green tea as well. because that would help you. You'd still get your caffeine, but it would help you relax a little bit more. So, Victoria, just in terms of your overeating, could you give me a little bit more, like when you overeat, what happens? Essentially, does it happen in the day? Does it happen in the night? Does it happen a lot? Is it issues with binge eating at all? Are you still there? Oh, okay. So essentially what I would do in that situation is I would start to split my meals up during the day. And you don't need to eat 6 meals a day. It can be anywhere from 3 to 5. Get your calorie count. Find out what your calories you need to eat during the day. So I said body weight times 10, and then body weight times 12. And then split up those for the amount of meals that you're going to eat during the day, right? So split up the calories for how many meals you're going to eat. So most normal people usually eat about 3 to 5 around there. So let's say you eat 4, and then you wanted to eat 2,000 calories. So you would split that up into 4 500-calorie meals, right? Or you can change it from time to time. But I would start, if you're noticing that you're overeating at night, but you're not eating during the day, I would start to make sure that I'm eating during the day. And then also big thing as well, sleep is going to be huge. If you're sleeping, like I would start to make sure, if you're going to sleep after 12 o'clock at night, I would start to make sure that you start to wind down at like 10 or 11. Even if you had to shoot for a time going to bed at like 12 o'clock. Because you want to make sure that your body's producing melatonin at the right time. Because if you're up overnight in the later hours, and I've noticed this before with people, they have a tendency to overeat more, right? I think essentially your body's trying to look for fuel, so it's going to look for that in the form of carbohydrates or sweets or anything like that, right? So making sure you set a good bedtime and you stick to that, like you're not going to bed 10, 10, 10, 10, and then 3 a.m. on the weekends, right? If you're sticking to a normal pattern, so let's just say 12. Yeah, set reminders on your phone. That's the biggest thing. And space out your meals, right? Those are 2 huge things that are going to help you from overeating. You might still overeat at first. Your body's just trying to get used to the new pattern. But just give it a bit of time and then focus on other things, like you could do some exercises at home, body weight squats, you could do some push-ups, rows, yada, yada. Try to get your mind away from eating sometimes in the evening, and that could be from going for a walk to reading a book to, I don't know, if you have a dog or a cat, or even watching some TV, right? But I find sometimes too TV can lead to people overeating as well. But that's the best thing to do. Set reminders on your phone, because that way you'll get reminded every day of what you need to do, right? But just as a quick reminder, because we've been here for a little while now, I'm trying to answer everybody's biggest questions regarding fat loss. So if you do have any questions, please let me know. Hello, Mitchell. How you doing? If you do have any questions, please let me know. If not, then I don't know what to tell you. I guess there's no more questions. So before I go, I just wanted to let you all know that, like I said, I made an offer last night. I'm going to be starting 2 groups in Dartmouth, 12 p.m. and a 6 p.m. session, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Now, if you want to, I'm going to set up a link below. Now, the offer is going to be, what I'm going to do is I want to give back. So the offer is going to be, I'm going to help people train for free in December. So if you want to take me up on that offer, I'm going to post a link up in the comment section of this video. If you want to take advantage of that, please, by all means, just follow the link in the comment section. And I will talk to you very soon. But other than that, is there any other questions? I just want to make sure before I go, is there any other questions regarding fat loss that anybody needs help with? Any questions that they need answered? I'll make sure to do more videos like this as well. Oh, and I guess I'll give you a quick update too. I'm feeling better now too. I've noticed I'm We got my sleep back on track. My weight's starting to come down again, which is good. I find my meals during the day are great. I'm kind of controlling my hunger. It was a little off kilter before. My energy levels are starting to come back up. I still have some nights where I'm a little bit, I oversleep sometimes, but other than that, most days are getting a little bit better, which is good. And I kind of relate that back to, my own training and, keeping up with weight training and not falling off the wagon. But I think the biggest issue too is my sleep. So I was a bit of a night owl before, and I would used to go to bed at say 1, 2 o'clock. So even for me, setting my time back to 12 o'clock has been a huge change, right? So it's helped my body kind of process everything and get the required rest it needs. But other than that, enough about me. What do you think of me? No, I'm just kidding. If anybody has any other questions, I will be happy to answer. Like I said, these questions are regarding, what you need help with regarding fat loss. If there are no other questions, I will end the video and come back at a later time to annoy all of you. No other questions. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. And I hope I helped out. And I will talk to you all soon. Thank you for watching. And have a good day.